Hi friends, I'm Parviz from geekschoolers.com and this is our 11th video in Python programming language. In this video we're going to learn about functions. Also for functions we can tell that it is a block of codes. So when you want to do a particular task that you have defined in a function, you call the function responsible for it. If you need to perform that task multiple times throughout your program, you don't need to type all the code for the same task again and again. You can just call the function dedicated to handling that task. And the call tells Python to run the code inside the function. You'll find that using functions makes your program easier to write and read. Now let's create our first example in function. So for creating a functions in Python, you can just use def keyword, and after that you need to write your function name. For example, we are going to just say greeting. So my function name is greeting. Now this is our function. Now you can do something in this function. For example, right now I'm going to just print hello friends, and I can just say welcome to geekscoders.com. Now if I run my code, so let me just run this, you'll see that I'm not receiving any result, because when you want to create function you need to call that function. If you don't call the function you will not see any result like this. So now we can just call our function in here, so it is greeting. Now if I run this, so you can see that we are receiving the code inside our function, and it is hello friends, welcome to geekscholars.com. Now for example, you are in a situation that you need this code again. So now you don't need to write this code again, and you don't need to define this function again and again. You can just call this function as much as you want. For example, I need this greeting function again. So for this you can just call it as much as you want. Greeting, and greeting. So now if I run this, you can see that I am receiving 4 times of greeting code in here. So this was creating of simple functions in Python. Now sometimes you need to pass some information to a function. So now sometimes you need to pass some information in the function. Now for that we can call function parameters. So we can say that a piece of information that the function needs to do its job is called function parameters. Now let's create another example. For example, let me just remove this. I'm going to just create my greeting function again, and in here you can add the function parameters. So for example, I want to pass username data in this function. So when I'm going to call this function, I need to pass a username data in the function as a parameter. Now we can just print, and we can just say welcome, and we can add the username in here. Okay, now now if I call my function greeting, and you can see that it needs as username. So if I run this, you'll see that I am receiving error. Now you can see type error, greeting missing one required positional argument username. Now we need to give a argument in here. So for example, I'm going to just say my name, and if I run this, you can see that welcome Parviz. Now we are not receiving any error in here. Now let's call this function again, and this time I'm going to just add John. So if I run this, you can see that I'm receiving the result in here. So like this you can add parameters in function. So now sometimes you need to pass multiple parameters in function. For example, now let me just create another function. In here I'm going to just say def print name, and this we have last name, and we have so first time I need to write so first name and also last name, and now I can just say full name and first name plus last name. and I can just say print so your full name is, and I can just add my full name in here. Okay, now this is a function that needs two parameters. We need to give first name and we need to give last name. So now let me just show you, and now when I want to call this in here, so I'm going to just call print name, and now you can see that we need to add first name and also last name in here. If I add just first name and if I run this, you can see that I am receiving error because it's telling that print name missing one required positional argument last name. So now we can add our last name in here, and now if I run this, you can see that I am receiving that your name is Parwizi Farooq, and we have received our full name in here. So now sometimes we need to add a default parameters for our function. Now for example, we have a function of add, and it's a function that we want to add two numbers. So now I can just say sum x plus y, and now I can print sum in here. Okay, now if I call my add function, I need to add two number in here. So for example 4 or 5, and now if I run this, you can see that I am receiving 9. Now if I call this function again, and this time I want to add 3 in here, and if I run this, you will see that I am receiving error. Now for this, we sometimes we need to add a default parameter. For example, for the y value, I want to add 5 in here. So now if I run this time, you can see that now I'm not receiving any error because this is our first number, and the second number, and now you can see that it's receiving the default parameter. Alright guys, now let's talk about returning a value from a function. Now a function doesn't always have to display its output directly. Instead, it can process some data and then return a value or a set of values. Now the value the function returns is called a return value. The return statement takes a value from inside a function and sends it back to the line that's called by the function. Now for example, I have a function. I'm going to just say full name or whatever you can just call it. Now in here I'm going to just add my first name and also so let me just make this print full or print name. So in here I have my first name and also last name. Now I want to create a full name and I want to just add first name plus last name. Now this time I am going to just return this full name in here. I'm not going to do anything. I want to just add these two names together, and after that I want to just return the full name in here. Now when I call this function, so for example my name, and if I call print name, and I can add my name, and so this is the last name. Now I can just print this my name in here, and I can just say full name is, we can just add my name in here. So now if I run this, you can see that I am receiving the full name in here. Okay, now let's talk about returning a dictionary in function. So a function can return any kind of value. We have learned that how you can return a simple string, and we have done it in here. But sometimes you need to return a dictionary. Now let's create the example. So let me just remove this function and our method. So for example, I have the person info. So there is no difference between methods and functions. We can call it function or we can call it method. So this is my method. I have person info, and I'm going to just add first name and also last name as parameters. Now I'm going to create a dictionary of person. So for example, the first is first name and the last is last name. Now we are going to just return our person in here. Now I want to call my this method, and so it's person info. Now I can add a name in here. Now if I print my name, so if I run this, you can see that I am receiving first, this is my first name and this is my last name in a dictionary. Now you can access to a specific value, for example, so this is our key and this is our value, so I want to just access to the value of first and also last key, and we can just say print my name. So I want to use my first key in here and print my name, and this is my last key. So now if I run this, you can see that I am receiving my name in here. Also you can pass a list to a function, so sometimes you need to pass a list to the function. Now let's just create an example of this. So for example, I have a function or a method of greet in here, and I'm going to just add names as a parameter in here. After that, I'm going to create a for loop in here, so for name in names, and now I want to create a message in here, message variable, and I can just say welcome, and in here I can add my name, and at the end we can just print the message. So now we are going to create our list. So let me just say usernames, and I can add some usernames in here, for example at main, and you can add just some random usernames in here. Okay, now I'm going to call my greet function in here, or greet method, and in here I'm going to pass my usernames. So let me just add usernames in here, and now if I run this, you can see that I am receiving my usernames in here. So like this you can pass or add a list to a method. Alright guys, now we want to learn that how you can pass arbitrary numbers of arguments in functions. Now sometimes you want to know how many arguments a function needs to accept. Fortunately, Python allows a function to collect an arbitrary number of arguments from the calling statement. For example, consider a function that print, for example, numbers. Now it needs to accept numbers, but you can't know that how many numbers will be added for the printing. Now for this we can use asterisks in Python. Now let's just create the example and you'll know. So let me just create a method, and for example I'm going to just call it add, and whatever you want you can just call it. Now in here we can add asterisks. Now it means that we can add, let me just add numbers, we can add arbitrary arguments in this method or function. Now I can just say print numbers. Now if I call this add numbers, so you can see that we are receiving numbers, and you can add as much as numbers you want. For example 1 2 3 4 5 like this. Now if I run this, so you can see that we are receiving these numbers in a tuple, so you can see that it's in a tuple. Okay, now let's use a loop in here, and we want to loop through these numbers. So for this we can just say for number in numbers, and we can print the number in here. So now if I run this, you can see that these are the numbers in here. Like this, you can work with the functions in Python. If you have any question, please let me know. And also for the source codes, you can just check my website, geekscoders.com.